Waterloo City Council work session meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bozen?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Foyce?
Here.
Mr. Greider?
Here.
And Mrs. Juon?
Here. Need a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve the agenda as proposed. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have an agenda. And first on the agenda is our city attorney, Marty Peterson, to discuss an ordinance amending the parking of recreational vehicles.
Thank you. I would defer to Maria Downing on that issue, and we can both sort of visit about that.
Okay. Go ahead, Maria.
Hello, Maria Downing, Code Enforcement Foreman for the City of Waterloo. We're looking to do just a very short amendment to the 6-7-3D1, parking of recreational vehicles. There is one sentence in this ordinance that states that no recreational vehicle owned by persons not residing on the property shall be parked on the residential property at any time except for visitors. And we would like to have this sentence stricken from the current ordinance based upon if you had a family member or friend and you had enough space legitimately on your property to be able to help them store a boat or a trailer, that with this part of the ordinance, you would not be able to do this. And this has actually been in the ordinance since 2005. And the 12 years that I've worked for the city, I have never, until just recently, had this brought to my attention. And talking with my staff, none of my other staff have ever had this actually as a complaint. So usually when we deal with the vehicles or recreational vehicles, we look at the number, we look at how they're parked, make sure that they're parked legitimately, and that's usually what we address when it comes to that. So,
Maria, can I start? Why did we go to 3 vehicles?
It used to be 2 recreational vehicles were allotted per property. And when we redid the parking ordinance in 2015, we wanted to make it a little bit more user-friendly because we were running into problems with people that did have a camper and a boat, and let's say they had jet skis or some other type of recreational vehicle. Most of your citizens have 2 recreational vehicles when we deal with the recreational vehicle. Very seldom do we run into problems where we have 3 or more.
And visitor parking would be limited to 30 days still, though, right?
Yes, visitor parking is limited to 30 days. So that's 30 days per calendar year. That's not per visitor either. That is like your total combination of if you have 2 or 3 family members that visit you with a camper, it is 30 days total. So,
but that would not preclude them renting out their space to someone all year?
as far as renting out their space to someone all year?
Yeah,
On their property?
yeah.
So,
If somebody had a friend that wanted to park their camper at their residence, at their friend's residence for a year, they could do that?
yes, they could actually do that. What the visitor parking is basically stating is if you have out-of-state family or friends that actually come to visit you in a camper or an RV, then it is limited to your 30 days per calendar year. So if they are parked legitimately on gravel and they're licensed and they're operable, but they're not a visitor, it's just someplace that they're actually storing their vehicle, then we feel that that should be allowed.
Questions from other council members? No questions? Mrs. Klein, I remember, didn't you have an issue with recreational vehicles?
The issue that I had was someone put cement in front of their picture window and permanently parked a camper right in front of their house. Right in, not to the side, not in the driveway, but in front of the central window of their home. And the neighbors complained about that.
But that's legal, correct, Maria?
Yes, because in the old parking ordinance, before we went to the 6-7-3, under the 302.8, there was a clause in there that stated that you could not park any recreational vehicle in the front yard of your property, that everything that was 48 inches or taller had to be from the side all the way to the back. When we redid the parking ordinance in 2015, it was undecided by council at that time on how they wanted to have that addressed. And so therefore, it was just never put into the ordinance, although there was a couple of reserved spots. So, and from my understanding, it has been brought up, and
So
but
it stays on the ordinance that it's supposed to be on the side?
no, in the old parking ordinance, any recreational vehicle over 48 inches tall could not be parked in your front yard. With the way that the current ordinance is written, your recreational vehicles can be parked in your driveway or on a driveway extension in your front yard.
Mrs. Klein, I thought you had two different issues. There was another one where it was parked on the side of the house, the little house.
Yes, it was one of those wooden sheds that looks like a tiny house. And they had it so close to their back door, to their side door. It's a little ranch house. And they brought in this little wooden tiny house. They never took it off the four wheels and, I don't know what you call it, the structure that moved it in there, put it right by their back door, and they were moving freely for a period of time between their home and that little house. And there were lights on at night. The neighbors all thought that it was acting as an extension of their home. And then when I called in about it for the neighbors, the people did move it slightly away. They moved it further into the driveway part. But I thought we cannot get into the business of using those little structures that you can buy at the big box stores as homes or extensions of our homes. And going back to Mrs. Juon, going back to the concrete in the front lawn, right in front of the picture window, I recommend every council person take a drive over to Zachary Court and see what I'm talking about. It's a cul-de-sac. And the neighbors have every right to say it's really affected the appearance of their neighborhood. It
Madam Chair.
does not look residential. It looks like a parking lot for RVs.
And Mrs. Klein, I appreciate we probably need to bring that up at a separate time. My question to Maria is this tiny house considered a recreational vehicle?
No, it is not considered a recreational vehicle. It is, as far as my understanding, it's not even really considered to be an accessory structure. We don't have anything in our ordinances that address the tiny homes. So I do know the few tiny homes that I have dealt with that I actually have been able to go inside to make sure that there was nobody actually living in them. But as far as them having them parked in their driveway, and the ones that I have dealt with have been pushed back past the front side of the house. So, there's just nothing for us to really enforce when it comes to the tiny homes. There's no specific wording regarding those in either the zoning ordinance or the city ordinance.
Mr. Greiner.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we're just deleting language on this. We're not adding any language. We're not talking about location. With this specific work session, we're just talking about eliminating that one sentence, correct, Ms. Downing?
Yes, just that one sentence.
Madam Chair.
Okay, I just want to make sure the issue doesn't get confused.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm not sure. Is
Dave Boson.
Mr. Boson?
Maria,
Okay,
I fully support this. When will you be bringing this back before council for council approval?
as soon as I'm able to.
If all the council is in support of it, we can have it on the agenda next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's two.
Any other questions?
Do we have support from other council members? I see thumbs
Yes.
up. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Okay, next on, well, Kelly, can we go to the next one yet?
We could, but I think we should wait until 4:30 so that the individuals who are wanting to speak to the property can be available.
Okay. We'll hold on for 9 minutes then, please.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Maria.
Thanks for the minutes.
Okay, next on the agenda is discussion of the sale of 1644 Logan Avenue, acquired through Iowa Code 657A to two potential buyers. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. I think there was a memo submitted to the Novus system that talks about, the city of Waterloo, of course, uses 657A to clean up blighted properties and abandoned properties in the city of Waterloo. And obviously our goal then is we don't want to be a landowner, so our goal is to turn those properties back over to people to redevelop them, or if demolition occurs, to build new houses on them. To date, we've sold, I should have had those numbers for you, I guess, but I think about 5 to 8 different properties for residential infill. Then we've sold a number, I'd say about 6 to 10 for commercial infill. So again, we're trying to turn these properties back into positive tax-paying properties for the city of Waterloo. 1644 Logan is a high visibility location. And the nice thing is that we are seeing more and more interest in our infill policy for the city of Waterloo, which is great for reinvestment in existing neighborhoods. 1644, we did send out a request for proposal packet to people that were interested in it. We're fortunate to have 2 different parties that are interested in this. We want to bring it to council to see how you want us to proceed. The first one is and I apologize for saying anyone's name not exactly correct, Lanika James with Dilworth Capital. And I think it's Deb Harmon is the one that actually signed. I'm sorry, Lanika James is from Dilworth Capital. It talks about the financing for Deb Harmon. They are proposing to put in about $80,000 in funds to rehabilitate the house. Their timeline's about 8 months. They do have a construction team of a general contractor, electrician, plumber, and fence person noted on their application. They would be paying $5,000 for the property. The infill policy for the city of Waterloo then would reward them back when the entire project is complete with the $5,000 back and an additional $5,000 for infill. The existing house is a 2-story house of about 1,066 square feet with a garage of about 240 square feet. So total square footage to be rehabbed on this one is about 2,300. The second proposal, I'm sorry.
Are they putting in a basement, or is there a basement there? Because they're going to have 2 levels, right?
The house does have a full basement.
Okay. And
then an additional 2 levels above that.
Okay.
So first floor and the second floor and a basement.
Okay.
The second proposal is from Todd and Deb Borwig. Their proposal would be to demolish the existing house that is there and build a new house. They've also offered $5,000 under the same policy. The house plans they have submitted would be a 1-story house with a full basement, I believe, at about 736 square feet, and then it would have an 832 square foot garage. So total square footage there would be about 1,500 square feet. And I believe the applicants are present to potentially do some more presentation to you if you'd like, or answer questions.
Would either one of the couples be living in the house?
That would probably be a question for them if they are on the call.
Okay.
Council,
Do you mind coming to the microphone to speak? We've got Deb Borwig is in the audience, and she's going to address some questions for council.
yes, we will be living in the home. Me and my husband will be living in the home. And I just want to say that block in Waterloo, I grew up at 1614 Logan Avenue. My father is 85 years old, still lives at 1614 Logan Avenue. So I would be in the same block as my father, which would be great as I'm a caregiver for him. So we do plan on living in that home.
Ma'am, could you give your name and address, please?
My name is Deb Borwig. Currently, I reside at 511 Cutler Street in Waterloo.
Madam Chair.
Do any council members have questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Boza.
So ma'am, what would your time frame be from start to finish? Do you have that locked in?
You have to come up. 3 months. Our time frame would be 3 months.
So that would be demolition?
Demolition
site-
would take
site
place
prep, and
right
then-
away.
And then the house up in 3 months?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
one of the things that I noticed in the documents that we had, part of what was requested was financials, and I don't see any as far as for the Borwigs. I do see for the Harmon as far as financing. So can that be addressed?
Mr. Anderson?
The documents that we have in the packet are the documents that we received.
So you have no financials on the Borwigs?
That is correct.
Excuse me, may I present also?
Yes, Mrs. Borwig?
No. Excuse me, my name is Damian Carter. I live at 1772 East Crestline Place in Denver, Colorado. I am representing Mrs. Deborah Harmon, who is a native of Waterloo, along with myself. And Mrs. Harmon came to us and asked us for guidance on the 637A program. Mrs. Harmon currently lives in the same neighborhood, presently 2 blocks from the property in question. She was educated in Waterloo and plans to retire in Waterloo, and currently she rents in Waterloo. She came to us. We are a small capital company, and we do consulting in regards to programs like this that haven't been basically put out to the public for the underserved. So once she came to us and asked us for help with this, we decided to go ahead and lend her a hand and decide to help her work with the program and to find a property that she would be interested in, and 1644 Logan Avenue fits that bill. We, as I said, I was born in Waterloo. Mrs. Harmon was born in Waterloo, and we see the property as being a pillar of the neighborhood. And as far as demolishing the property and building a new house, that's something that we don't have any interest in. As you can see, the plans that we submitted will show that home as it is and as being a gateway to the neighborhood. And our plans don't include tearing the house down and rebuilding the house. The property itself needs extensive work. We have done the due diligence as far as what work needs to be done to the property. The timeline that we submitted along with Mrs. Harmon is something that we feel was adequate to take on the renovation that we feel is necessary for the home. In addition, we're going into the winter months, which some of that work may be a little bit slower. So as opposed to giving you a timeline that may be something that we cannot achieve, we gave ourselves a little bit more time.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry. Maybe you said this and I just missed it. I'm having a little trouble hearing you. What was the timeline?
Our timeline on that, I believe, is about 6 months. That was when we submitted the proposal back in, I think we submitted our proposal originally in January, and that took into account the availability of the contractors that we work with. Since Mrs. Harmon is a person who doesn't have that much means, we will be using contractors that will work with us and use their time wisely. So it may take a little longer for their availability than a person who would come in and tear the house down and start all over.
And would Mrs. Harmon live in the house?
Mrs. Harmon has lived in Waterloo for 60 years. She's currently renting, and as I said, she rents roughly 3 blocks away from where 1644 is located, and this will be her first home that she owns.
So she would move into this house upon completion?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from council members?
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Noel.
Yeah, Mr. Morrissey?
Yeah, my question, excuse me, Councilman Bozen, is to the developer there. You submitted this in January?
Yes, we have had interest in this property since, as I said, Mrs. Harmon lives in the neighborhood. She brought it to us quite some time ago and asked us how to navigate the program since we have worked on a couple of projects in Waterloo. And as I said, I'm from Waterloo, so I frequent Waterloo quite often. So once she brought it to us, we started the process and was trying to figure out how this actually works.
Okay, so you will be rehabilitating a home and not messing with the structure other than the remodel that you're going to be doing to it.
No, as you see in our plans there, we've outlined what we plan to do to the house as far as a new roof. The garage I think is the only part that will actually most likely be demolished and replaced. The house itself, we've walked through a couple times with representatives from the city, and we feel that as far as tearing the house down is not something that we want to do. In addition, as I said, since the house is on the corner and it is a gateway to the neighborhood, it may not, new homes in that area may stand out.
And Noel Anderson, why has it taken 8 months to bring it to council?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. I'm not sure. I do know that the one form was signed in June, and then the financials were provided in April. So I'm not sure if they were finalizing all the documents, putting together to submit. But we're bringing it forward now.
Yeah, that was the problem. We were finalizing what we need to do on our part. We took interest in the home quite some time ago in order for us to do the due diligence and make sure that it is something that we could complete with the type of renovation that we plan to do to the home. We wanted to make sure that we weren't biting off more than we can chew, and that's something that we can complete in the timeline based on a lot of different factors. There's different, when you take on a project like this, you can always say that, it's going to cost you X and then it costs you Y. As I said, Mrs. Harmon looks forward to owning the house, and we don't want to present her with something to say, we've gone over budget. So we've made sure that we've sourced the necessary persons to work on the homes. In addition, working with different, basically, the restore facility that you guys have in Waterloo, as far as different types of building materials that we may get at a discounted rate.
Well, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents worth that I really appreciate somebody coming in and rather than raising a property that's been there for some time, restoring a property, and I'm definitely in favor of this project, Mr. Carter and Deborah Harmon. I hope that you're successful in that.
Thank you very much. As I said, we believe in Waterloo, and sometimes, as I said, tearing down a house, the history of Waterloo, I was just looking at it today. There's things about it that, especially this house, as I said, since it does sit on the corner and it is a gateway to the neighborhood, if need be, we may consider, building a new house there, a little bit smaller. But as I said, to me personally, it would look out of place.
Can we go back to Mrs. Borwig? I think she was starting to comment. Yeah. Can you tell us, Mrs. Borwig, why there were no financials submitted?
We did not see that you needed them. That's all I can say. We have financing. We have cash. If financing isn't an issue for us.
Okay.
And this isn't the first home that we will be building in Waterloo. We have 6 other homes that we have personally built and put on the tax roll in Waterloo. And if you'd like those addresses, I can certainly get them and give them to you. This isn't a one and done for us.
But you are going to be living in this
Yes, we will live in this one, and we've lived in several of the other ones as well. My mother-in-law currently lives in one of them. We lived in one for 8 years while we raised our children, and then sold that one and built another one. This one we'll be living in.
Any other questions from the council?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Boson.
Thank you. I want to talk about that other proposal, and it has to do with the, thank you, Mrs. Borg, it has to do with the timetable that was set up for that, because on the one that was submitted to council, the timetable starts July 1st, 2020, and it shows it being done maybe the end of January 2020, but my question on the timetable is that it shows you doing exterior painting and gutters and downspouts November 27th through December 21st, and then driveway landscaping work December 31st to January 28th. So are you going to be submitting a new time frame with this, because we're 3 months past the July 1st start date anyway? So
absolutely, we can. The timetable that we submitted was based on the property being awarded to Mrs. Harmon in a timely fashion. Now that we're pushed that out, as I said, when you look at the time frame, we've worked on and completed projects in Waterloo also. We can submit those if need be. And we understand that you're not going to paint exterior in Waterloo after a certain date, and hanging gutters can become a liability.
And so, that was my question, ma'am, because they're listed as late winter projects, and that's why I was curious, and if you were going to be submitting another time frame, because most of that work can't be done in the winter.
We absolutely understand that. We've done our due diligence, and we understand what it takes to do. As I said, work in Waterloo. We've completed various projects in Waterloo. If you need those, we will send them to you, and we can submit another timetable if need be. The timetable, is my understanding, is to understand that for you all to understand that we are cognizant of the scope of work that needs to be done to the home.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I can't tell who's asking.
This is Jerome.
Oh, Jerome, okay.
Yeah. This question is for Noel, I guess, because looking at the documents, what I saw was the actual allotted amount of time is actually 12 months. So realistically, whoever this gets awarded to has the opportunity to do it in a 12-month period and still be within the time frame, yes or no, Noel?
That would be correct. I mean, our general development agreement that we'll draft, we'll have them start within 4 to 6 months, depending upon the time of year, and then be done within 12 months. Just in case something were to come up with a freak weather storm or something like that, we don't want to have to come back to council just because they missed it by a month or so. So generally, our development agreements will say start within about 4 to 6 months, be done within 12 months.
4 to 6 months and 12 months from the date the sale is final?
That is correct.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Anderson?
Mrs. Juon?
I'm sorry, what?
Mrs. Juon, we've got an individual here to speak.
Oh, okay.
My name is Agnes Carter, and I'm here as a proxy for Deborah Harmon. She works for the state and is doing mandatory overtime, so she couldn't come in. But she will be living in the home, and she grew up, like Mr. Carter was saying, she grew up here in Waterloo, went to school in Iowa, resides here, rents here. She's been in the place that she's in now for quite a few years, and she's looking to retire and buy her home and get herself settled here. So that's what it is that she's wanting to do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this from the audience? Okay. Any more questions from council? Mr. Anderson, do you make a recommendation, or how do you typically handle this?
Well, I don't know if there's anything typical. We don't always have multiple parties for the same parcel, so we're looking for some input. Obviously, these are both great proposals, but looking for some input from council, how you want us to move ahead. Like I said, two great proposals, a little bit different. Obviously, one is a rehab, one is a demolition with new construction. we need to, I guess, get an idea from council which one you would like us to move ahead with, so we can work on a development agreement to bring it to council for full action.
Because the rehab is going to be rehabbing more space, does that add to the taxable value?
That's a good question. We'd have to ask the assessor to look at the plans to see if there'd be a huge value change between one house versus the other. Obviously, the rehab has more square footage. The new construction, however, would be new construction. So I would guess that they'd be very comparable in taxable value, but I'm not the assessor.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mrs. Klein.
I think it's a Solomon's choice. I think that, in my opinion, I would go with the program that returns the most dollars to the city.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Greiner.
I'd echo my colleague from Ward 1 that they're two great proposals. Whatever has the greatest impact on our taxes, I would say, would be the one that we should move forward on, based on the assessor's estimates.
The only comment there is I heard Mr. Carter say that, I think, if I heard it correctly, that if rehabbing became a problem, you would demolish and build new. Was that what I was hearing, Mr. Carter?
No, that's not the case. As I said, it's not the fact that if rehab became a problem. We've done our due diligence on the property, and we understand what we're undertaking. It's not a problem to demolish the home. It is something that we don't feel is necessary. We don't feel that tearing down houses in Waterloo and rebuilding new houses has as much value historically to the neighborhoods as rehabbing the product. So in order for us to return the house to how it can be, and also at the same time lifting the neighborhood up. If you look at the plans and the actual submitted drawings for the home, the house is still, it has historical, it still looks as good as it did back in the 1900s when it was built, but at the same time it's brought up to date. So we don't plan to, if we're not going to get into this and go and decide to tear the house down halfway through the process. So
you don't see any problems with rehabbing the home?
No, as I said, we've done due diligence on this property. We walked through it several times, understand what it's going to undertake, and have done work in Iowa and understand what it takes to rehab houses in the Cedar Valley. There's challenges that we've faced on numerous properties and understand what it's going to take to bring this house to the level that you see in our proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Pat Morrissey.
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
I just want to draw attention to what Mr. Carter said, and Waterloo's had a problem for a long, long time in tearing down its history. This house was built in 1874. It's almost 150-year-old house, and to destroy a house with that kind of historical significance along the Highway 63 corridor, to me, is taking a page from a book that we need to get rid of, and that is destroying our historical properties. I applaud Deborah Harmon, Hodges, and Mr. Carter for stepping up, wanting to take this property and to restore it and to improve it so that an 1874 historical property can remain on the tax rolls at an increased tax revenue base for the city of Waterloo on top of it. So I fully endorse the Harmon Hodges project, and I hope the rest of the council would see that historical significance in an 1874 house. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, maybe it was on the enclosed drawing, but I couldn't tell. What's the side street? I know it's on Logan, but what's the corner of?
Louise.
I'm sorry, what?
Louise Street.
Louise? Okay. Any other comments?
Madam
from
Chair.
Council? Yes, Mr. Belson?
Thank you, ma'am. Would Noel be able to, two questions for Noel. One, is his house on the historical registry? And two, would Noel be able to put a packet together on the economic impact on both proposals to council before we make a decision.
Yeah, I can get with the assessor to find out exactly what he thinks the value of both would be to determine that impact initially, at least from the property tax base. And then we can look at the historical data.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Boson, is that indicating that you would like to wait a week to get that report from Mr. Anderson before we take further action?
Yes, ma'am. I think to do due diligence, we should have all the information ahead of us before we make a decision on this.
Is that acceptable to the other council members? Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Greiner, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it gives us an opportunity to have an updated, hopefully they can get us back an updated timeline of construction as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mrs.
Okay, so
Juon?
Mr. Anderson,
Mrs. Juon?
Yeah.
Mrs. Borwig would like to speak again.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mrs. Hodges?
Mrs. Borwig, I'm sorry.
Borwig.
I would just like to, in the week that you're going to take to make this decision, to maybe see if Mr. Morrissey would like to tour inside of that home. The steps to the upstairs, where the only restroom in the home is, are very steep and very unsafe, which is why we chose to not rehab that house. We're not in the market of just going and taking down historical homes either, but seeing as how we are not 20 anymore, we need to have something that we're going to be able to actually live in. The steps going up to that restroom was just not a good idea for us. It wasn't just that we went in there willy-nilly and decided to tear a house down. And I've lived in that block since 1968 when my parents moved in there. And believe me, that house has never been a great looking home. Been there my whole life, speaking for experience. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Do those comments change anyone's mind? Okay, Mr. Anderson, I think you have some homework. We would like to have an updated timeline, idea from the assessor on value and the historic, whether it's on the historic register.
Okay, and then if anyone would want to go see the house physically, just email me and we can set that up as well.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair.
Comments?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to add that this home is probably not on the historical register because it takes some doing to get on that. Yeah. I'm talking about a home that is that old that has a history in and of itself that doesn't require it being on any kind of register.
Well, and in fact, going on the register would probably add to the expense of rehabbing that home, would it not?
Just a note from staff. I mean, we can find out at least if it's eligible from our past historical surveys to give an idea for council of if there are some historical elements that whoever, if they would rehab it, would want to keep, even if they're not using historic taxes like that. So we can at least get some information on it.
Okay, good. Any other?
And Madam Chair, I would like to add that we've destroyed way too many homes on the north side of the river. We don't need to add another one to that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Anderson has some homework. He'll bring that information back to us. Can you get back to us within the week, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let's get this on next week's agenda so we don't keep these potential homeowners waiting any longer. So thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned and we will wait until 5:10 for